Hey everybody, welcome back. I appreciate all the interest that you've given my first video, so I would ask you to please subscribe to the channel or give me some likes or share this on Facebook. However, I just do appreciate the interest in this because I really do enjoy what we're talking about here. This is the fourth time that I've tried to start my video, but I've got a 5-month-old kitten and he's kind of being a bit agitating. So, yeah. So please excuse him. um, I had my first class. Like I said in the last video, I am going through from the very beginning of learning about the Myers-Briggs type indicator to make sure that I know what I'm speaking about. And since my last video, after I typed up the transcript, I realized the last thing that I said about this being a personal venture was, I guess I don't know if I explained it properly, but I didn't want the video to end like that. But and the reason is because this is a personal venture for me because it's been a hobby for me for many years, but I need to get better at public speaking. So I'm really going to try to do this without making edits. I'm just going to try to free flow. I do have the notes that I look at, but I'm just going to try to go ahead and do this because I want to be better at public speaking, and frankly, it terrifies me. And I know this isn't the same thing, but it's a really good exercise for me, especially with a new business. I need to get better at speaking and having better self-confidence in myself when it comes to public speaking. So thank you for that as well. I also have another disclaimer to give you. I am not a certified administrator of the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And some of you might say, well, what's the difference? There's a lot of videos on YouTube about personality type and I took this test, or the Enneagram, or the Big Five or whatever. I can't speak to those, but this is the one that I know the best. And since I am an INFJ, it's easy for me to speak in metaphors. So the metaphor that I'm going to give you about why it's important, just as I said last time with having the right resources, good resources. This is the example that I've come up with best, is that, man, he's crazy. You wouldn't go to a physician or somebody who, that you wouldn't trust somebody with your health care that you didn't have good faith in. Whether you do traditional medicine or alternative medicine, you don't go to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So that's why it's important to have a good working knowledge and a good skill set. So when you do explain things, people have faith that you know what you're talking about. I do want to become certified at some point. Unfortunately, it does cost a little bit of money to do because there are a lot of materials involved. And you say, well, why does that matter? Well, it goes back again to having good faith in the authority. With having an assessment, not a test. I misspoke and I learned the difference. This is an assessment. There is no right or wrong answer here. So it's completely subjective. I'll go into that in just a moment. But it is a subjective assessment of your true preferences for how best to deal with the world, as I said before. So I guess circling back to that, I do want to become certified. So if I were certified already, I'm sure I'd have a much higher standard as to how I deliver this. But like I said, public speaking is terrifying, so this is a lesson for me to get better while helping you. So I guess the topic here is going to be very brief. I'm going to try to keep these a little bit shorter. We talked a lot about in the first class about presuppositions and basically the assumptions that we have when we take this test. As I said, it's not a test, it's an assessment. I apologize again. Taking the assessment, there isn't any right or wrong answer, and this is completely subjective. So one of the big things that we talked about is, well, I type this way or I type that way. I said in my last video that I typed differently when I was in high school. And the interesting part about that is I have been an INFJ for many, 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 many years, and it just resonates with me when I read the information in depth about INFJs. It makes a lot of sense to me. When I was in high school, I typed as an ENFP, and I said earlier that the cognitive function stack is more important than the letters themselves. I've got several people who say, well, I'm in between such and such letters and, I'm borderline or whatever. It's not really about that. When you actually dive into that function stack is when you really get to have your eyes opened to how you function and there are a lot of things that go into that when those presuppositions, they do say that make sure when you take the assessment that you are well rested, you're not stressed, you minimize distractions. Well, I'm always distracted, so that's hard for me. And I get test anxiety. It's not a test, but I get anxiety when it comes to having to be evaluated in any form, whether it is a test or not. I get nervous about that. So, they talked a lot about your environment when you are, if between your work life and your home life and your school life and all these different environmental factors, we do wear many different hats. We do put on, a different face according to what task you have to complete. So the point of this is to find your true self. So when you are resting, when the example they said, if it was Saturday morning and you have no plans, nothing you have to do that anybody's making you do, how do you plan on spending your day? What do you do? Do you kind of keep it open-ended? Do you like to set plans and knock things off of your list? Who are you? What is your true type? So I think it's important to kind of squelch the haters here. Some people think that it's just a kind of hokey horoscope kind of thing. And I would probably generally agree with them that it can come off as kind of a horoscope of sorts, because when you get into those cognitive function stacks, sometimes it's just the most obvious, the easiest way to assess yourself, just by picking and choosing the things that you do best in the most, the most frequent circumstances. So you might see that characteristic to a point, but when you read an entire description of that type, some parts don't resonate with you. Well, you might have that characteristic, but when we get into this, you're going to see that those characteristics, the order in which they appear, that makes the difference. So I read a really good book. My teacher in this class, so one of the many teachers in this class, there's about, 6 of them on the team, but 2 are heading up this class. He gave me this book. It's called The Building Blocks of Personality Type. I think this is backwards, but I'll put a link to it, an Amazon link or something, in the description below. So maybe you might want to read this. So if you have any knowledge of Myers-Briggs type indicator going into this is a really good book for you to read. I'm not much of a reader, but I pretty much knocked it out in about 2 days. So I like theory, so it's easy for me to jump into that. Otherwise, it's probably the only book I've read the past year. So give that a look. But don't assume that this is just some sort of hokey BS, because it's really not. There's decades of science into this, and science is what helps us move forward. It doesn't keep us back. So as we move forward here, I just want to let you know that I'm probably going to stay kind of general for now, because I do believe that context is important, and I want you to know that, on whose authority, I'm not an authority on this by any means, but I really want to help people get an introduction into, getting through life, as I said before. So I guess a little bit of circular reasoning and reiterating myself, but it is important to have um, the right resources. So that is why I'm taking the classes, and I will make videos as I am inspired to do so. So I'm gonna try not to ramble. My apologies for that, but stick with me. It's gonna be good. We'll see you soon.